Welcome to the Calm Analytics channel. I'm Boris Tizenghausen. It's May 1st today, and here's the top news at this hour. Bloomberg is reporting some very grim statistics for Putin. In April, Ukraine carried out at least 21 strikes on oil refineries, marine terminals, and Russia's oil processing infrastructure. These April attacks led to a drop in Russia's oil refining volumes to 4.69 million barrels per day. That's the lowest level since 2009, and that's just for April. 21 strikes on Russia's most critical oil facilities. But there's also another interesting statistic. From January 1st to May 1st, over these 4 months of war this year, in figures, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the elimination of 122,740 occupiers has been confirmed and caught on video. That's an average of about 30,685 characters. I wanted to say people, but they're just subhuman. Now, Russia reported today or yesterday about 127,000 newly mobilized troops over that same period. So, in total, Russia mobilized 4,260 more ghouls than it lost in 4 months. So, well, it's clear that the numbers might differ slightly here and there, but the trend is obvious. Meaning Ukraine has effectively reached a level of eliminating occupiers that basically zeroes out their mobilization. And that's probably exactly why Putin's call to Trump happened. Everything is spinning out of control. It all looks rather bleak. So Putin chatted with Donald Trump for an hour and a half. Well, accounting for the translators, I'd say cut that in half, 45 minutes of actual conversation. And I think the main question for Putin was how he could show up at the May 9th parade without anything hitting his balding dome. Of course, he tried to convince Trump to persuade Zelensky to declare a ceasefire for May 9th. But Putin's aide, Yuri Ushakov, stated that Putin briefed Trump on the current state of the war in Ukraine, claiming that Russia holds the strategic initiative and, I quote, is pushing back Ukrainian positions, and that Russia will definitely achieve its military goals regardless. But Putin preferred that these goals be achieved through diplomatic means. Meaning Russia will reach its military goals, seize Donbass, as I understand it, but for that, Ukraine must withdraw its troops from Donbass. Nothing changes. Let me remind you that during this time, Ukraine has largely halted the advance of Russian troops along the entire front line. So, essentially, the Russian spring-summer offensive has stalled. Putin is simply afraid, catastrophically afraid to step out into the center of his own capital on May 9th. Can you even imagine that? Just think about it. And he's asking Trump, please, just don't let them shoot on May 9th. This is exactly what everything is going according to plan looks like. As Ushakov says, all goals will be achieved. Is this how Russians imagined the 5th year after the full-scale invasion? And notice, for Russians, the situation is only getting worse. Refineries and oil depots are ablaze all across Russia. Ukraine is already actively striking as far as the Urals. And also note that, to this day, the Botoxed ghoul still hasn't stated the final goals. I mean, they say all goals will be achieved, but no one actually says what they are. And now it's completely ill-advised for him to do so. You know why? Because with the strikes on Tuapse, the question is, if the final goal is to seize Donbass, Russians in Tuapse will ask him, why is it at our expense? Why is Tuapse on fire? That's the question. And why is Perm burning? What are you doing, Putin? What goals? Why do we need this Donbass if all of Tuapse and Perm burn down? Doesn't sound too good, does it? And ask the residents of Tuapse if they need a scorched Donbass right now, a piece of scorched earth with piles of bricks instead of houses. Do they need it at such a price? I think you'd hear some very interesting answers. And Tuapse was hit again for the 4th time. Tuapse is like a second Chornobyivka, I don't know. Let's watch the video. Everything is burning and blazing again. All Russians are collectively saying thank you to Putin for this. I told you, they won't stop until our drones burn everything down. But you know what's important here? Something else. I mean, the tanks will burn, of course. There will be a 5th time for Tuapse and a 6th. But something else is important here. Tuapse is a verdict. Tuapse is obvious helplessness, simply Putin's inability to protect Russians and critical infrastructure. Well, he doesn't protect Russians much, but the critical infrastructure. So no economic impact from the burned tanks in Tuapse can compare to the political impact. Autocratic regimes, they're held together by fear and violence and any sign of weakness, and this fourth time in Tuapse is just a blatant display of the regime's weakness. So any sign of weakness is a massive blow to an authoritarian regime. Somewhere in the Russian heartland, a toothless aristocrat from Syzran asks, "We're Russia, we're the greatest." How can this be? Can't we shoot down some Ukrainian drones? Who was talking about lasers and super weapons? Putin regularly comes out and talks about it, so where is it all? And all these fairy tales from Putin about the devious, bloody Kyiv regime, about Anglo-Saxons, about Ukro-Saxons, I mean, they're only going to be annoying right now. If the Kyiv regime is so cunning, then why haven't you been able to defeat it for 5 years, since the full-scale invasion? Or maybe, and here, in a whisper, some Syzran aristocrat in a kitchen somewhere, maybe Russia isn't so great after all. Maybe Putin is lying just a little bit? Maybe he's been feeding us a line just a little, or maybe not just a little. Putin recently sent the Minister of Internal Affairs to Tuapse. And what's the point of that? He's shutting down the internet across Russia because of the drones. And what's the point? They just keep flying. They hit the target. That's why Putin is calling Trump and asking him to stop Ukraine, while of course claiming that all goals will be achieved. What goals, you balding centipede? What goals? Donald, please, we'll definitely achieve all our goals, but just stop them. Just don't let them hit Tuapse and don't let them hit Moscow on May 9th. Otherwise, of course, we're winning. Of course, Donald, believe me. That's how that conversation sounded. You basement dweller, take your occupiers out of Ukraine and it'll all be over. And Ukraine, by the way, will still have to think about whether to end it or not. There's another important point here. I recently talked about how Ukraine is shifting its focus to European partners, realizing that help from Donald Trump isn't coming. This is, by the way, very noticeable. I repeat, we would very much like the United States to be the main partner, the key partner, in the war with Russia. But Ukraine has drawn its conclusions, and Russia has felt those conclusions for itself. So since Ukraine is shifting to European partners, and there's a certain cooling off, with fewer contacts with the United States and the White House, Donald Trump's request not to hit Moscow on May 9th might very well be met with a refusal. And a very interesting article has come out, right on topic. Ukraine has stopped reacting to calls between Trump and Putin. I mean, Trump's calls to Putin and Putin's to Trump. Kyiv is increasingly relying on its own strength. And the phone call between Trump and Putin, which would have caused concern in Kyiv before, went almost unnoticed this time. If in 2025 such contacts were seen as a potential threat to Ukraine, now the reaction has shifted to actual indifference. The New York Times is reporting on this. Well, on the other hand, Trump himself doesn't like losers. Putin was telling him last year and the year before that a turning point was coming. Any minute now we'll take Donbass back in the fall of last year. So, what's the result? Ask them not to hit Red Square. Summon the spirit of Anchorage immediately. Hurry. Putin is in bad shape. By the way, friends, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It's important for the channel's growth. And we're here fighting Putin's propaganda. Let's fight it together. So make sure to subscribe. The Russian government has banned the import of equipment that allows receiving signals from foreign satellites. The ban includes Starlink terminals and their equivalents. They're also tightening control over terminals already being used within Russia. Caution, the doors are closing. Next stop, North Korea. I think it's not just a stop in North Korea. This locomotive will barrel right through, even deeper. In the USSR, they jammed Western radio because they feared some kind of alternative truth. A voice from abroad was breaking the party's monopoly on the truth. Turns out things aren't so bad there and everything's just different. Now Putin is doing the same thing with Starlink. The problem, by the way, isn't the terminal, but that satellite internet can't be fully funneled through Roskomnadzor, the FSB, this state censorship meat grinder. All dictators are afraid of this. In Iran, there are even special patrols that track down Starlink terminals and punish anyone who has one. First, they cut off mobile internet for Russians. Soon they'll cut off regular internet, leaving only a list of approved sites. Now they'll ban Starlink terminals and welcome to the bright past, as they say. Can you imagine such a reality? Soon, information from the free internet in Russia will be shared in whispers in people's kitchens, just like Stalin jokes, which used to get people sent to places not so far away. The whole world is advancing, creating new tech, speeding up the internet, exploring space, while a bunch of KGB fossils are shutting down all technology in Russia. But essentially, it's an admission of fear. The Kremlin is afraid of any connection they can't just shut off with a flip of a switch. Russia is rapidly returning to the era of just 3 TV channels, no internet at all, and Putin's Truth newspaper. Meanwhile, Ukrainian warriors are performing an incredible feat right now. They've stopped the Russian offensive and are giving the occupiers hell. And in every episode, we have an important fundraiser for Ukraine's defense forces. Today, we're continuing the fundraiser for the Freedom of Russia Legion, fighting for Ukraine, raising money to repair damaged equipment and to purchase drones. Legion fighters are currently deployed in almost all the hotspots. And another crucial point, the Legion isn't just fighting at the front, they're also causing trouble for Russians deep behind the lines. The Legion's commander, the legendary Caesar, has recorded a video message for you. Please listen.
Дорогой Борис Тизенгаузен, уважаемые подписчики его канала, от имени бойцов Легиона Свобода России я хочу поблагодарить вас за всю ту помощь, которую вы нам не раз оказывали. Сейчас я снова обращаюсь к вам за помощью. Нам нужны средства на ремонт наших автомобилей, нам нужны средства на закупку БПЛА. Мы будем вам очень благодарны и в этот раз. Вместе с вами мы обязательно победим. Слава Украине! Свобода России!
Let's help the Legion. The donation link is in the description of this video. There's Mono and PayPal for those who want to help from abroad. In every episode, I give a special thank you. I thank you for supporting our fighters and for helping Ukraine. You are simply incredible. If you're watching on another channel, there's always a QR code in the corner. It leads to the fundraiser. And also, a huge thank you to you. We've closed the fundraiser for the Aquila Air Defense Unit of the legendary 3rd Army Corps. Thank you so much for that. Medvedev woke up from hibernation, rose up, and suggested introducing the study of drones into the school curriculum. The night before, he also visited the training center of the Leningrad Military District, where the governor of the Leningrad region said that since the beginning of the year, since the start of this year, 343 drones have attacked the region. In connection with this, Governor Alexander Drozdenko once again called his region a frontline one. Well, Medvedev's goals are clear, I think. He's interested in drones for a reason. He probably hopes, when he's in liquid Terminator mode, spread across the floor over several rooms, after a couple of bottles of Finlandia, that drones will then be able to deliver a flask to his window so he doesn't even have to get off the couch. So Medvedev has a direct interest, but for the Leningrad region to be called a frontline region in the 5th year of a full-scale invasion, everything is going according to plan. Before they know it, Moscow will become a frontline region, and a mumbling Putin from somewhere underground will say, everything is going according to plan, everything is going according to plan. Medvedev, by the way, reported that it was him who gave this figure, that in 2026, 127,000 Russians signed a contract. But excuse me, where did everyone else go then? We have an entertaining math lesson here. In February 2022, 180,000 Russians invaded the territory of Ukraine. In 2022, 300,000 mobilized. In 23, 400,000 contractors. In 24, 410,000 contractors. In 25, 450,000 contracts. In 26, in this one, they already say 137,000. So in total, almost 2 million Russians are being sent to the front. There are about 700,000 on the front line now. Where, pray tell, are the 1.3 million? Where did they go? The Kremlin, of course, won't give you an answer, but I showed you in recent videos Russian cemeteries from Russian cities packed with hundreds and thousands of these ghouls who died ingloriously. That's how it is, a sea of Russian flags, graves, new graves dug. So that's where they went, it turns out. So Medvedev, it seems, gave away a military secret. He'll get drunk later tonight and say 1 million people have already signed up. In other interesting news, State Duma deputies will not be attending the May 9th parade in Moscow. For security reasons, they've decided to strictly limit access to Red Square. I mean, before, deputies always attended, but now they've suddenly backed out. You see, first off, deputies are more important than veterans, though they'll drag a few out for show. The most cautious parade in history. Let's be honest, the most cowardly parade in the history of the Russian Federation, if it even happens. What are you so afraid of? You're winning, according to Putin, and there's air defense all around Moscow. So what's the fear? Come out to the parade, deputies. Don't be shy. All of you gather in one place. Madhyar is really looking forward to that moment. And yes, by the way, another important point. Let me thank you, my friends, for the huge number of birthday wishes you sent me. Literally thousands of messages across different platforms. I've never seen anything like it. Thank you so much. It's very kind. And many of you noticed there was no episode yesterday. What happened? Well, it's true. There was no episode yesterday. Yesterday was the one single day of the year when I don't release an episode. It was my wife's birthday, the only day of the year, because every other day I'm on all year round, weekends, holidays, but on this day I take a break. A long time ago, I was lucky enough to meet my soulmate. I'm very happy about that. It just so happens our birthdays are one right after the other. But it's not just about Tuapse, as they say. For example, in Perm yesterday, drones struck again. Explosions, white smoke, black smoke. Mind you, that's 1,500 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. And yet, another strike there. What's important here is the depth of the strike and that drones are flying through several regions unhindered by Russian air defenses. The illusion of safety is crumbling. Putin cannot protect sites within Russia's own territory, and he doesn't care about Russians at all. He really doesn't. Otherwise, would he have sacrificed over 1 million Russians in Ukraine? Of course not. Local residents in Perm, by the way, complained that they were warned about every possible emergency. All at once, the sirens were blaring and a voice was making announcements at the same time. So within a few minutes in Perm, besides the air raid siren, they heard radiation danger, chemical alert, flood threat, hazardous chemical leak, contaminated air cloud, and a severe storm warning. Well, the authorities explained it away, saying they were checking something. I think it's clear some kind of screw-up happened. Can you imagine how the people in Perm just freaked out? Get used to it, get used to it. You can thank Putin for that. Meanwhile, the bunker moth has produced yet another senile masterpiece. I'll quote him. It is Russia that is the land of the rising sun, since its borders in Chukotka are further east than Japan and New Zealand, Putin stated. He's just, sitting there talking total nonsense, sitting on a bench like, and there, the borders are further, and Russia is the land of the rising sun, and it's still unknown if the earth is round or not. What's going on in that Botoxed skull of his? And what's this? Is this all that Putin is worried about right now? Which country is further east? Who is the land of the rising sun? How are things in Perm and Tuapse, Putin? Don't you want to comment again? Is nothing interesting happening there? You could also, to distract Russians, bake the biggest pancake in Russia. Putin could also visit the Cucumber Festival. Where is it? In Suzdal. There are no other problems in Russia after all. But that's not all. The main intelligence directorate today published details of a unique operation to eliminate the Kadyrovite Akhmat unit in the Sumy region. From February to April 2026, the Shamanbat Special Unit of the GUAR of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, together with the 104th TDF Brigade Horin and with the participation of the Intelligence Operations Unit, conducted a comprehensive, unique operation against the Akhmat unit of the Rosgvardia in the Sumy direction. Intelligence received information about the enemy's plans through an agent who was a former serviceman of Akhmat, and with whom contact was established at the beginning of 2025. Later, he was brought to Ukrainian-controlled territory, but before that he installed a listening device in the unit's meeting room, and this device was delivered to him by a drone. This allowed for recording the command's conversations. The plot is awesome. There's a film about 13 minutes long. YouTube won't allow it. There are some very sensitive shots there. But I'll definitely give you a link at the end of this video to where the GUA published this film. I highly recommend watching it. That is, there are moments of eavesdropping on Alodinov, who thinks that no one will find out about his plans. He's always so businesslike, right? I can imagine his face now when he hears the wiretap from his closed meetings in the GUR film? Well, and thanks to the data obtained, Ukrainian forces launched precision strikes on the enemy's movement and concentration sites. As a result of the operation over 2 months, 41 minus 87 wounded, more than 100 missing because the bodies aren't being collected, and also more than 160 units of armored vehicles and motor transport have been destroyed, communication equipment, engineering vehicles, and warehouses. In short, it's excellent. That is, our people, through a bug in Alaudinov's office, were listening and struck right where new operations against Ukraine were being prepared. Therefore, in the description of this channel, I'm leaving a link to the GUR Telegram channel. There you will find this film. I highly recommend watching it. Well, you take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, subscribe to this channel as well. And I'm asking you very much, let's help the Legion. The link to the collection is in the description of this video. Have a peaceful day, everyone, and glory to Ukraine.